Welcome everyone, Costin here with a discussion about Age of Mythology Retold to talk about the major gods in the game and their rankings according to multiplayer statistics, because we finally have them. Someone has made a website to look at the various win rates for the various major gods in the game. It would certainly be nice to have statistics for the minor gods as well, but for now we just have the major gods and which of them people are using, how many games have been played, and which gods are proving to be popular, which gods are not proving to be popular, and which gods are doing very well and those that are not. There are some surprises over here, though most of what we're about to see does line up to my expectations. Again, just a couple of surprises over there. So taking a look at the statistics, we can see that the god that is currently doing the best at the moment in the game would be Poseidon. And what I'm going to look over here at in terms of the statistics is this particular tab right here, the 1000 to 1400 ELO ranking. The reason I'm not going to look at this one necessarily, though it can have some impact, but the reason I'm not necessarily going to look at this is because there's just too few games at the moment in the 1400 to 1700 range, and there's very, very few games above 1700. There's only a handful of players in the world right now that have over 1700 ELO. So I think right now the 1000 to 1400 is indicative of the game as a whole. Though keep in mind, considering the ELO you do start with and how easy it is to get over, 1100, you can take this with some grain of salt. But because of the limited number of games we do have in the other ranges above that, it is probably the most worthwhile statistic to look at. I am going to ignore the ELO rankings below 1000. So the god that is doing the best in the 1000 to 1400 range is Poseidon. And overall, it is Poseidon that is doing the best. Though if we are looking at the higher rankings, just for a comparison's sake, nothing else, we can see that he's not necessarily top tier, but it's only like 2 percentage points over there difference in very few games, again, as I said. So that's just worth mentioning over there. He is not the most played god. In fact, if we scroll down over here in terms of like played gods, we can see that Hades and Zeus are played by a lot more people. It makes sense. Like a lot of people would probably look at Hades and think, oh, that's a great defensive benefit, or Zeus. I mean, Zeus is the first choice that probably a lot of people will pick, or the game is going to pick for you. Now, why do I think Poseidon is doing so well? Well, as I have covered in a previous video, at the moment, the current multiplayer meta is focused on aggressiveness, map control, early game map control, and knowing your build orders. Poseidon has a couple of benefits over here. He has a food benefit with his initial god power. He has a cavalry benefit, a fairly strong one at that. And then, of course, he can get centaurs. Now, mind you, Zeus can also get centaurs, but Zeus doesn't have the same win rate as Poseidon. Poseidon just benefits more from centaurs, and I would say, like, right now, it's not necessarily the centaurs that are helping him out. That's just an addition to the fact that Poseidon does have that better cavalry. And it is worth understanding exactly what's going on over there with both Poseidon, by the way, and Odin, and the reason they're doing so well. See, they have a focus on fast-moving units, and they have a food benefit, different kinds of food benefits, but they both have a food benefit. And the reason they're doing so well is they have regenerating HP on their cavalry. So what you end up with is a lot of games, I imagine, based on what I've certainly seen myself, what I've looked in replays, what I've experienced playing online, is you have players that what they're doing, they're pushing for that regeneration benefit, they're getting involved in a bunch of hit-and-run engagements, then they're healing whatever unit is damaged, right? They take out any unit that's severely damaged, or they do some hit-and-run, they do some damage, they pull out, they heal, they go back, and that is what is making Poseidon so very, very strong right now in the game. And also, when you add in Ceasefire for Hermes, you can also get even more control. Now, I've made my point regarding Hermes perfectly clear. It is situational, but the problem is the situation right now is very favorable to Hermes because that early game aggression, that early game map dominance, and when you control the map, you're denying your opponent hunts, you're denying your opponent gold, you're denying your opponent extra town centers. And that is one of the issues, because dealing with in the innate regeneration that Poseidon does have for his cavalry is an issue. Then Odin is the Norse equivalent of Poseidon. I would say the Norse are not necessarily as strong as the Greeks, just keep that aspect in mind. But you consider Odin, freaking hell Odin. He gets more favor than with Great Hall units than the other Norse gods. He has 2 free freaking scouts that respawn constantly in the game. And he doesn't even need the research as Poseidon does. In fact, I'm surprised Odin is not necessarily higher on this list. I mean, he is the highest in the highest bracket over here, but again, limited games. But still, when you look at the majority of games, I think like it's just probably people are more comfortable playing Greeks than Norse. Maybe that's the reason, but it's only 1.7% difference. But that scouting benefit, that gathering benefit that Odin does have, that favor benefit, that innate regeneration benefit, those things make him really, really strong. And I'm not surprised by this. Like, what I've seen, like Odin being dominant, not freaking surprised, right? I would personally say, like, from my perspective, I think Odin is the most powerful god at the moment. And, you know, at high rankings, we can see that. But again, just very limited data. Then we get into Loki. In third place, we have Loki. And Loki's benefit over here, in terms of his benefits, I think what's really driving Loki to be in third place over here on this list is the following. He has cheaper ox cards. So that makes it more comfortable for people who are dealing with Age 1 and even Age 2, because you can get your initial ox cards and further ox cards without having to worry, oh, am I going to have enough resources to pump out villagers, and it will help you get to Age 2 faster, because you do want to get free ox cards in Age 1. So I think that's one of the benefits for Loki. Then you have a vision benefit as well. It's pretty telling, I should add, that 2 out of 3 gods over here have an innate vision benefit. So Odin has a vision benefit, Loki has a vision benefit, you know, with his inherent abilities over there, or an upgrade, like his god power, and then an upgrade that is fairly strong over there. So that's one benefit, and then yeah, you can spawn free myth units as well. So I think really it's the ox cart benefit, the vision benefit that's driving Loki to do as well as he is right now. Though it's kind of interesting to think about the situation right now as to how balanced the top gods at the very least are, because like regardless of, you know, regardless of the rating we're looking at, being at the lowest rating, the middle rating, the highest rating, you are seeing at least a couple of gods over here that are within that 56-54% range, or just above 50%, regardless of that. So that does speak well for the balancing between these gods in particular. Not necessarily all the gods, because believe me, there are others that are going to do much worse. In fourth position, we have Isis. I admit I'm surprised Set is not necessarily higher, but I kind of understand exactly why Isis is so strong, doing so well right now. Almost 51% over there in terms of her win rate. The reason behind that, the protection that her monuments give you, that is fairly substantial. Her gold gathering benefit, that is very substantial. If the focus is in the early game, then having the ability of generating a lot of gold very, very quickly is significant. And that's what Isis gives you. Because what that means is, like, her god power is ridiculously strong in the early game. Because you use that god power, sure, it might cost a while, a bit to reuse it, but you use that god power in the early game, not necessarily in Age 1, but you use it in Age 2. And suddenly you have a lot of and you assign a lot of villagers to gold for the duration of it, and then you put them on, all of them on food and wood, and you have a vast stockpile of gold available. You can trade that gold for other things. You can probably move from Age 2 to Age 3 very, very quickly. And you're protected against enemy god powers. You have that enormous benefit. You also have a good selection of gods available to you as well. Kronos. Well, I think the reason Kronos is doing so well, one, deconstruction. So you remove enemy structures. That's going to frustrate the hell out of an opponent. that's going to cause issues. That might open gaps in their defensive lines. That's one particular problem when dealing with Kronos. Also teleporting buildings, so you can move your barracks, your temples, very close to the enemy to the enemy base. In fact, one of the very best players at the moment, he ended up dominating and getting rank 1 with Kronos because he was able to just use a cheese strat where he was getting to H2 really, really quickly, getting Prometheans, and then just flat out denying the enemy gold and winning the game through that. That is a significant level of power. It's a particular cheese over there, you know, Kronos and Prometheus, but it does work very well. Now we start dropping a lot below 50%. We get into the discussion about set. Now, what's interesting to note over here is that at the lowest rating, Set is not doing so well. In the middle rating, he's 49.4%, but in the highest rating, with almost 400 games, he's at 54%. Now, this does match what I kind of expected with Set. See, Set does have some very significant benefits, but you need to know how to take advantage of them. You shouldn't view the animals of Set as a military benefit, because it's not really a military benefit. It's a food benefit. And the reason it's such a strong food benefit is it gives you hunted animals, and when you're gathering meat from hunted animals, you're doing it much faster than farms, you're doing it faster than berries, and herdables are pretty comparable, especially if you get the upgrade, but it's just much better to have those hunts. So what you can do is you send your initial priest to start gathering animals from across the map, and that means you will have those animals to use. I imagine that's exactly what's happening right now in a lot of Set games. People are using that. You have great scouting capability, one of the best in the game as well. You have a benefit for both tier 2 and tier 3 units. So regardless of how you view it with Set, he does have a lot of significant advantages. Now, surprisingly, we then have Freyr. But Freyr is in line with expectations for me personally. Like, if you're gonna tell me, oh, Freyr is gonna do well on low elo, but he's not gonna do so well at higher and higher elos, that is reasonable to expect. And the reason I say this is because his win rate goes from 54% at less than 1,000 elo to 49.4 to 37.8, the only 143 games over there. And to me, what this says is, like, in the games where people are getting their build orders in order, where people know exactly how to squeeze you out, where people know where to apply pressure, how to apply pressure at the highest level, Freyr just falls behind, because he does fall behind. The fact that his upgrades take so long is actually a significant downside in the early game. And a lot of games are focused on the early game. His innate god power, yeah, it's strong. It's also really, really expensive to recast. And that's the problem, by the way. It's basically a one-time use. Well, guess what? If you're dealing with, say, Odin or Poseidon, oh, you might use that, and then you won't use it again through the entire game. And it's not like Norse have such a significant favor benefit. They can get that kind of amount of favor easily, and even if they do, even if you're playing even if Norse could generate favor in the same way that, say, the Egyptians or the Greeks or Atlanteans could, you still won't want to spend your favor on that. Then we have Uranus. So Uranus is doing the best in the middle section right now of these statistics. He's doing the worst at the highest elo, but he's still at a respectable 45%. But 49.1%, I think the benefit with Uranus is that he gives you a safety net. Like, if you're going to hunt, if you're going to go for gold, those sky temples, sky passages rather, they give you that kind of safety net. It gives you mobility. Like, you can sneak a villager behind the enemy base and just teleport your entire freaking army behind the enemy base and attack them when they might least expect you. It is a significant level of power. It's one of the reasons I really like playing Uranus personally. On top of that, very importantly, you can go outside of the safety net of safety bubble of your base to hunt, to get gold, while not having the same level of risk as anyone else. So I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing Uranus doing quote-unquote so well. Though, keep in mind, anything below 50%, it is not necessarily that great. Though it's only, 0.9%, so, you could say that's reasonable. Zeus, one of the most played gods in the game at the moment, with 48.7%, 49% the middle ranking, 43%. It is worth pointing out that a lot of people that are going to start playing online are going to probably start playing with Zeus. And keep in mind, 1,000 to 1,400, so it's like literally just people who are starting multiplayer. You're probably seeing a lot of those represented there. I'm a bit surprised, I guess, by Zeus compared to, say, Poseidon, because I would personally say that Zeus in general is a better god. Like, you have two different rush options. You can go centaurs or you can go minotaurs. You have stronger heroes that you can get out faster. You get more favor. You start with favor. You have the ability of instant killing of unit. But it is that lack of map control. I imagine that's hurting Zeus over there in that particular respect. And unlike Hades, he doesn't have strong defenses, so that is a downside. Hades, the most played god in the game, and very popular at the lowest elo in the game. Very, very and has a good win rate over there, but not necessarily as good. Though unlike Zeus, he's actually doing better at the highest elo. It's that defensive benefit. I suspect that what's happening with Hades is a lot of people play him defensively. They use the defenses, they think they're safe, and then they lose control of the map, and then they end up losing the game. Hades is a trap, in a sense. Like, I would strongly recommend people that are starting to play the game don't start with Hades, because you will fall into some very significant traps with him. You think you'll be safer than you are actually, and you might think, oh, I have strong range, I have strong defenses, I don't have to worry about map control necessarily. You do. That's kind of the problem. But fairly respectable numbers. Like, overall, so far, things have been pretty balanced. You can't really complain. Like, you look at Freyr, you look at Zeus, they're not doing so well on the highest level. Even Uranus, they're dropping like 45%. Yeah, that's certainly an issue. Then we get into the discussion of 4. So the last 3 gods over here are 4, Gaia, and Ra. So, worst gods in the game, especially poor freaking Ra over there. Jeez, like, you look at the highest level elo right there that people are currently playing at. Yeah, it's not great for Ra. But let's talk about 4. So 4, 44%. So interestingly enough, it's actually inverted for 4. So he's doing the worst at the lowest elo. He's doing better at higher and higher elo. My suspicion is that people who are starting out, who are losing their initial games, who are dropping below 1,000 elo, they're struggling how to make his economy work. Because you can't play 4 in a way that you play any other god in the game. Because you do start with those dwarves, and you might think, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to make more dwarves? Don't make more dwarves. Make gatherers. Put your dwarves on wood. Get a bunch of food gatherers. Chop down 2 trees, 1 or 2 trees in their entirety. Gather them, and then put those dwarves on gold. But get gatherers for food. That is your priority as 4, by the way. But I'm sure a lot of people are not really figuring out how to handle that initial build order. And while 4 does have significant benefits, those benefits don't necessarily involve map control. So he's struggling in that respect. And I would say 4 is really good in a longer game, not necessarily in a shorter game. That would be my perspective, and I think that's the reason behind it. Gaia. Jeez. Whew, poor Gaia. I mean, ignore the 40... Like, she's doing the best at the lowest level elo, but even then she's below 50%. Then she's at 45% almost in the middle level, and at the highest level, she's getting demolished. Now, the reason I suspect this is happening is not necessarily because Gaia doesn't have power. She does have it. But she doesn't have aggressive power. And right now, the name of the game is aggression. And also, it has to be said, like, map control, map dominance, aggression, those things do matter. Like, Uranus does have flexibility, say what you will about him. I personally would say Uranus is the worst god. Like, that's my perspective. I made that particular point, myself. Gaia's economic benefits are very substantial. But you do need to be able to contest the map in order to take advantage of them. And I think people maybe playing Gaia a bit too much, focusing on the economy aspect and ignoring the military aspect. I don't know. I would really like to know exactly why people are doing so badly with her on the highest level. Honestly, she's just not getting played. Like, only 90 games. Like, you look at the other gods over here, like, they at least have over 100 games, whereas Gaia has only 90. So, you know, very small sample size over there. And then finally, the worst god in terms of multiplayer rankings in 1v1 is Ra. Not surprising. Not surprising. You know, I think Egyptians do have a lot of inherent benefits, sure, but Ra, like, whereas you might have a civilization that is weak and you have a god that's good, right? That's really pushing that civilization higher. Ra is the exact opposite. He has a good civilization. In fact, the Egyptians were so overpowered that I think the developers had to nerf them between the beta and release. I'm not quite sure on the specifics, but all I know is that they made some changes. And you look at Ra. All those wonderful benefits that the Egyptians can have, they're not necessarily present there. You compare Ra to Set or Isis. Like, Set has a significant gold benefit from huntables. Isis has a significant gold. Set has a significant food. Isis has a significant gold benefit. Those are great. Ra doesn't have either of those. He has a farming benefit. A freaking farming benefit. Oh, but you can empower buildings. Yeah, it doesn't work. Because, again, right now a lot of games are very early game focused. And early game, very early on, you're not going to have a large number of priests to really take advantage of that. Yes, you can use monuments for that purpose, but, again, limited. Like, even a single priest is actually a pretty big deal because they're not cheap to begin with. Priests are not cheap units. They're expensive units. They're your anti-myth units. You want to use them for scouting. You want to use them at battles. Having a bunch of priests sitting around just empowering buildings is not really going to work out for you. Even if it's just a couple of monuments. Like, yeah, you can get away with maybe doing one or two, but even then, you're spending a good amount of gold for those one or two priests. So this is one of the problems. So the empowering thing, I mean, it is power, sure, but it doesn't necessarily work out. And the rain benefit, you know, give me the capability of hunting from animals faster, or just give me a general food gathering benefit, and yeah, that would work out very, very well. Really curious to see that at the highest level, he has less than 30%. I mean, I think it's pretty clear, like, yeah, Ra is not in a great place. He's the lowest ranking. Let's see the lowest level. Weirdly enough, yeah, Set is the lowest level at the lowest percent at the lowest elo. I suspect people are just not handling the animals correctly. But even then, like, at all levels, Ra is either the worst or the second worst god in the game right now, based on how people are playing him at the moment. And just for the sake of comparison, like, lowest level, Freyr is doing pretty well. Highest level, Odin, Loki, Cronus, and Poseidon. And then Set. So the highest level with any actual reasonable number of games. So it's kind of worth pointing out that there's a lot of games over here where a lot of people are playing Poseidon. Like, if you look at the ladder statistics, the 1v1 statistics, what the top players are playing, yeah, there's a lot of freaking games where people are playing Poseidon. So there's more data over there. Whereas the data when you have like 100 games is obviously not conclusive at all. So I think we do need to see, you know, over 100,000 games for each of these gods to, you know, get any definitive conclusions at each of these ELO rankings. And also, you know, 1,700 to 2,000. That's all I had to say. Costin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.